The protest rallies on Sunday, September 21, were big. The biggest since the Million People March in 2013. And as in 2013, large-scale corruption was the object of public outrage. Many other protest rallies lit up the country on September 21. Did it matter that there were two major mass actions in Metro Manila? What did these accomplish or set in motion? And the question in many people's minds, what happens now? Hi, I'm John Nery and you are in the Public Square. The September 21 rallies were the work of many hands. We are joined today by two of those involved in organizing them. Former party list representative Teddy Casiño is chair of Bagong Alyansang Makabayan or Bayan, which helped organize the Baha sa Luneta protest. And Kiko Dee is lecturer in political science at the University of the Philippines and one of the introverts-turned-organizers of the Trillion Peso March at the People Power Monument. Welcome back, Teddy and Kiko, and thank you for joining us again in the Public Square.
Thank you for having us, po.
Thank you, John.
I was very fond of that sign. There's a person, I think, there's a person just in front of me in the march going to People Power Monument. And I was like, what does that sign say? Is it reverts? And then when I read the whole thing, I said, I need a picture with this. It's the only picture I took. Because I'm not really fond of taking pictures, but it's the only picture I took of the People Power Monument.
Ganon na daw kasama yung sitwasyon sa bayan. Even the introverts are out in the streets. A question for the two of you, Teddy first and then Kiko. What did you set out to do? Tapos nagawa niyo ba yung gusto niyong gawin sa September 21 Baha sa Luneta rally?
Well, I think whether in Luneta or Edsa, the objective really was to provide our people a venue to express their outrage dito sa nangyayari. Kasi maingay sa social media and then, of course, organized groups. Maaga pa, nagpipikit na, nagrarally na yan sa Congress, pati yung DPWH, bahay ng mga diskaya, binato na.
That's right.
But we wanted the general public na sila dapat ang magalit dito. Kaya inisip namin Luneta because, Luneta is for everyone. Maraming pumupunta dyan, maraming namamasyal, very convenient to everyone. So, nung nag-usap-usap yung iba't ibang mga grupo, ano pwede natin gawin? Why not a big rally at Luneta? And basically, that's what happened. Talagang ramdam na ramdam mo doon sa Luneta. And I guess in EDSA also, yung galit, yung hinaing ng mamamayan. But more than that, yung panawagan nila ng pananagutan, lahat dapat managot. And also the call for a change in the system. And para sa akin, yun yung maganda. Kasi looking forward na tayo eh. Unlike yung Million People March, it was really outrage.
That's right.
I-abolish yung PDAP, but after that, medyo hindi malinaw eh. I think this time, people have learned their lesson. Naghahanap na talaga nung anong mga pagbabago.
And I think 2013 might still be fresh enough. No? Na parang naisip natin, ito na naman. Ito na naman. Kiko, what about you? What were the objectives that you set, your group set, and then were they met?
Yes, I think definitely the tweet niyo ba kung Teddy was the September 21 idea. No? So I think it was planted in everyone's heads na September 21. And I think it happened nga na the day that we met to first decide on date, venue, was also the day the Baha sa Luneta was announced for.
Sabay actually.
Sabay. And then we announced the following. I think yung one of the organizations I'm part of, Tindig Pilipinas, had a protest in Edsa Shrine the day after. And the priest presider who said Mass was announced on that day that will be at 2 p.m. People Power Monument sa September 21 din, diba? So it all happened at the same time. And I think just yun, People Power Monument, parang September 21, it's a big part of that whole EDSA story. And while if you ask me about it, it's the human rights abuses that are front and center in the Marcos administration. Right up there is also the large-scale corruption that happened during that period. And so I think it was an appropriate time to use the martial law anniversary to call out the anomalies happening under Marcos Jr.'s administration and across all past administrations as well. Definitely it was to give people a venue to articulate their anger and also to show specifically the people in government that there are people who willing to bear a cost, no? To go out in the heat, in the rain, on a Sunday, which is supposed to be a rest day. People who are willing to bear the cost of holding their feet to the fire as far as this corruption is concerned. I think that sends a strong message, both from Luneta, and you got great shots from both Luneta and People Power Monument. Yeah, there's this force of people that won't let this issue go.
And I think it's worth noting that officials are were listening. I mean, they talked about it in the Senate hearing. So they were referencing now what happened. If I'm not mistaken, ang unang version was Billion People March. Tama ba? And there were Trillion Peso. But ang gusto kong itanong, was there a chance for you, the two groups, to talk to each other? Or?
Parallel eh. Kasi yung sa group namin na nagpatawag ng meeting, itong grupo nila David San Juan, Taong Bayan, Ayaw sa Magnanakaw at Abusado Network Alliance. Binuo nila, tama na. Tapos yung isang environmental group, sila Nina Fegi of Luntian Coalition.
Okay.
Kasi nga, ang dami ng usap-usapan. So, nag-decide sila, patawag tayo ng meeting and then let's see what we can do. So, they set it on, I think that was,
The 10th, no? I think sabay.
September 10, no? E di, nag-invite na kami doon. And then, a day before, o 2 days, a day before yata, nalaman nila David, nag-invite naman itong grupo ng mga clergy. Yung
Church Leaders Council for
National Transformation. And he was also invited. Kaya lang, sabi niya, nakasana natin yung meeting. Ang hirap namang So, what sila David did, nagpadala sila doon sa CLNT, and then tuloy na yung meeting. And then nalaman ko na si Howie Calleja was of Sambayan was also in that meeting. So habang nagmi-meeting yung dalawang grupo, nagte-text kami ni Howie, pwede bang i-work out natin isang lugar na lang. Pero ang hirap i-coordinate kasi dalawang groups yan. So one group decided na umaga sa Luneta. Kasi ang kasama namin yung mga bikers and runners eh. Sabi nila paghapon, hindi natin masasama yung mga bikers and runners. So gusto natin umaga. So we decided umaga. Nalaman namin, tamang-tama naman, hapon ang dinicide ng kabilang group. So nung finally nag-usap, ang namin, sige, let's have one in Luneta in the morning and Edsa in the afternoon. Pare-pareho naman halos yung mga calls natin. May ibang constituency yung Luneta. May ibang constituency yung EDSA. I think the church really decided na immobilize yung mga parokya at schools. Ito naman talaga yung mga communities ng Binaha at yung youth ang habol namin. So I think it complemented. And nung in-announce yung press con, magkasama namang in-announce. So it worked out great.
Your view? I mean, how did
correct, no? So parang I actually wasn't in the September 10 meeting, no. I had a class that day, so I sent some yung ibang mga kasama ko were representing. But nung nagkukwento, it was a deliberative process, no. They're still deciding where would we have it, when would we have it, hindi finally yung September 21. But it emerged. I got wind na 2 p.m. People Power Monument, September 21. And then I started seeing the ones from Luneta. And so it's really the whole thing was parallel. We came together, I think, for a press con the Monday before the protests. But I think what was clear was these were two parallel efforts that were already sort of the machines were moving on both ends na mahirap nang pagsamahin. But definitely the two were in solidarity with each other. A bunch of personalities attended both. Si Kong Laila de Lima, I think, she spoke in Luneta, and then while the church sort of decided no political speakers, at least in People Power Monument, she was still with the crowd. Parang hearing it on the end of the organizers, parang dinudumog na silang tatlo, sila ni Senator Baha and Senator Kiko, na they had a hard time getting to the backstage. So it's like it was a problem, but it's like it was a problem I wasn't frankly expecting to have, na ganun karami yung lalabas. So
I don't have a problem with the two rallies, right? I mean, as you said, parallel, complementary. I subscribe to this view, the political scientist Nancy Fraser, na plurality of publics. Maybe there's not one public sphere, but as you said, there are different constituencies. No? But can we address that issue? Kasi may mga sa social media, meron mga paano ba to? Hindi naman tayo magkasundo. We can't even unite on one. And I'm thinking, tama ba yun? I mean, so we had 2. So theoretically, it works. I want to ask you, what did we gain from having 2 massive rallies in 2 different parts of Metro Manila?
Well, at least you had 2 venues for speakers. Imbis na nagsiksikan lahat sa isang program at nag-aanohan dyan, sino ba ang ilalagay natin? At edi dalawa. Edi you had 2-3 hour programs. Yeah. For isa sa umaga, isa sa hapon. So more people were able to articulate their sentiments. Tsaka iba yung crowd. EDSA has always been, a middle class crowd. Tapos simbahan talaga ang nag-mobilize. Ang Luneta, masa talaga eh. And ito yung very notable dun sa Luneta, yung presence ng mga youth from the communities. Yung mga nakaitim na yung hip-hop crowd, basically. Para sa amin, I think this was the first time they really came out in mass. At social media yung nila, yung panghatak nila. And the rappers were there. So, yung ganun may kanya-kanyang hatak eh. And I think that's a good thing. It doesn't preclude all these groups in the future from organizing an even bigger event in somewhere else. Pero at least alam na ng dalawang grupo, ito yung kumbaga, capacity natin, mas maganda kung mapagsasama yan in a future event. And I think that is on everyone's minds. Yung tanong natin, what happens now?
Yeah.
Another rally, a bigger rally, baka isang rally, magkasama na lahat. So, it opens up a lot of possibilities.
Do you share the same view?
Yeah, I think kasi our politics has always been very diverse, no? And I think may parang like unity, and especially the issue that we have at hand. It's something that we all agree on, but it also doesn't erase like disagreements that happened, and you saw it on social media then, diba? But I think it's always important that that's on the table, that yung divisions aren't taken for granted, and that we engage in that process na is this something that we can come together around and then speak with one voice on? Or if not with one voice, at least speak in concordant tones kahit paano to call for accountability. So I think definitely there will be rallies going on in the future, and definitely conversations continue to be had like this one. We're from different camps and everything, and at least for me, it's important we keep the door open for that. But also, I think it's maganda rin to highlight nga na we were able to serve different publics today, and I think yun, I forget who to attribute it to, but in social movements they often say let 1,000 flowers bloom, no? So parang if we're all
I think that's Chairman Mao.
There you go. So baka may amnesia, no? But still, that sentiment, no? Na parang you can have someone from different persuasions and calling out this particular problem that we have right now. I think that's also a victory that we can celebrate.
So the biggest rallies were in Metro Manila, but I was struck by the fact that there are so many other rallies. If you were listening on the radio, iba siya. Were you in touch with any of those outside?
Some.
Was that spontaneous? Ano ba yun? I mean, ang dami. There must have been over a dozen cities with rallies.
Nung nag-usap kami with the clergy, doon nga yung joint press con, tsaka how to harmonize, ang isang usapan talaga, manawagan sa regions, na gumawa rin sila ng sariling pagkilos. Hindi pwedeng Maynila lang. Kasi everyone is affected by corruption, di lang naman dito. So kami sa Bayan, talagang nanawagan kami sa mga regional, provincial formations namin, maggawa rin kayo ng activities nyo and then link up with all the other groups na pwede nyo ma-link up. And I think yung church nanawagan din. You had parishes, you had urban poor community, lahat ng grupo. Hanggang abroad, may mga Filipino communities abroad who also held their own activities.
You said your group was in touch with some groups?
Some, no? So parang some of us were also parallel to organizing in Manila. Some of them were sort of just advising for Cebu, Iloilo, Negros, definitely. CDO, we were also in touch with the group there. And then, not in the organizing, pero I met someone na sinabihan ako na, uy, may nangyayari ngayon sa Baguio na protest din. Do you want to give a message of solidarity? Sige. So, yeah, I think there's some of it was coordinated, but I think even more, I don't want to say even more meaningful, but just as meaningful. Parang some of it is just spontaneous na we knew nothing about. Nalaman na lang namin sa Diaryo na, uy, meron din dito pala. Or Diaryo, social media, whatever.
Teddy, let's talk about the incident in Mendiola. No? So that there was a violent action somewhere, and I think Manolo Quezon's latest column says parang Rashomon yung situation because now there are different
narratives,
perspectives. No, how should we think about that?
Yeah.
No?
Let's start from what actually happened.
Okay.
So marami talagang mga, for lack of a better term, hip-hop groups. Hip-hop and probably punk groups.
Okay.
Ito ang uniform nila, black, and then naka-ski mask. Nung nanawagan na for rally sa Luneta, ang dami sa kanila nag-respond online. And you could feel, sila yung mga nag-viral actually. Yung mga pub mats nila, yung mga rants nila, yun yung nag-viral sa social media. So we really, and during the rally at Luneta, they were really there. Pero magkakaibang grupo yan. It's not as if they are, one solid group. Kanya-kanyang grupo sila. And some were carrying the flags, yung one-piece flags. Yan ang uso ngayon sa kanila. Pero lahat sila nandun. Lahat sila nakiisa sa rally. So no problem. And then nag-march na going to Mendiola. But even from Luneta, you could feel the seething anger. Sa speakers nila, sa performers nila. Nandun yung galit eh. And yung galit, hindi lang yan naka-direct sa isang politiko. Hindi lang kay Marcos, hindi lang. Galit sila sa gobyerno. Lalo na, nung nakaharap na yung pulis, galit sila sa pulis. And I guess these are people from the communities na, alam mo naman ang pulis sa community, sila
It's a daily reality.
Sila yung dyan, yung mga tukhang. So may ganong factor yan. But we really said, we tried to keep them in check. So the march was okay. May humiwalay pumuntang Ayala Bridge. So apparently, sinugod nila yung mga pulis doon. The rest of the march to Mendiola, okay lang, peacefully nakaabot hanggang doon. Nakapag-program pa. Right after the program, nung paalis na yung main contingent, sumugod na itong mga kabataan. Marami ng teorya dyan. May nagsasabing bayad, may nagsasabing inudyukan. Pero for people who were there, Luneta pa lang may ganong galit na. And ito yung galit ng mga komunidad, youth, who are very frustrated with what is happening. Ang mga panawagan nila, English pa nga yung iba down with the system, yung ganon. And hindi mo masasabing DDS Kasi galit sila kay Duterte, galit din sila kay Marcos. I think these are the disenfranchised youth. At nabitin sila doon sa rally lang. They wanted action. So ihalo mo pa yan yung galit nga sa mga pulis. At pati yung mga kabataan mula sa community around Mendiola, sumama so there was that factor. Yun nga hindi namin sila matawag na mga provokator tingin ko may malaking factor doon yung spontaneous anger nila. May gusto silang gawin and for us in the more organized movements, yun yung klaseng galit na gusto mong i-channel sa iba pang paraan ng pagkilos, but you cannot judge na na hindi dapat nila ginawa. Because for them, that's the only way that ma-manifest nila yung kanilang anger sa sistema.
Yeah. We can devote an entire episode to that particular thing because
very interesting.
Talagang mapapaisip ka talaga, When people turn to violence, they're obviously driven by extreme circumstances, di ba? But I just want to ask one more question, Marami dun sa mga nahuli, I think mga 200 yata nahuli. Marami sa kanila menor de edad.
Yes.
Ito ba yung mga rappers mismo o mga napasama lang
Actually,
Sa mga
marami
rappers.
bystanders.
Okay.
Kasi, nung nagtakbuhan na, ang ginawa na ng pulis, kung sino lang madampot,
Okay.
dinampot. So marami doon, yung mga miron, maraming miron. I think yung hinuli nila does not really reflect sino yung mga nasa unahan. Yeah, may issue rin kasi na kung sino-sino na lang dinadampot ng pulis. But definitely, communities, urban poor communities, karamihan ng mga kabataan na nandun. Yeah.
Thanks. Kiko, there was a thriving hub sa Edsa Shrine, no? I did not realize that when it was going on, but later looking at the video footage and so on, meron pa, tapos they were honking, and then it went late into the night, no? Was that part of the PPM mobilization? Was that something else? Was that spontaneous?
To my knowledge, it was spontaneous. Although I saw some organized groups also joining in. I don't know if they were the ones who planned it after or nakisama na lang sila when people decided to go. But yeah, it was, parang learning about it was also surprising kasi medyo naiwan ako doon sa PPM noon sa pagliligpit or some last minute interviews that we had to do. And then I actually was committed to a candlelighting sort of ceremony sa Bantayan ng mga Bayani to specifically commemorate martial law kasi we weren't able to we had planned that before September 10 and all of these rallies came up. Sayang naman to cancel it on the anniversary. So I had gone there and then I had a pretty late dinner and it was really just pagod na pagod. No? Pero so people were texting me na, punta ka rito sa Edsa Shrine. There's more things happening. So I think after everything, baka mga alas 11 na ang gabi na siguro when I was able to get back. Things had cleared out a bit. Although I saw some people, there were still some people dun sa steps ng Edsa Shrine. I don't know if they were just kung nagliligpit na lang or if they were still there demonstrating.
Were the people at the Edsa Shrine stragglers from the People Power Monument rally and looking for like the rappers? Parang bitin pa yung rally.
Kung bitin man, I think it might have been more because they just didn't see the program. Kasi if you saw the people, one thing that we hope to improve on kasi is the intention of the organizers was for the crowd to fill up White Plains Avenue, and if ever spill over into Temple Drive, maybe into EDSA a little bit. No? But what happened was when people were marching in, nung nakita nila yung stage, tapos may mga nangyayari na doon, they didn't want to leave that spot.
Yeah, so they filled up.
It really spilled out
couple
into
of lanes,
EDSA. And even ako, I never thought I'd see again yung mga flyovers sa EDSA getting filled up then. But I imagine like the majority of the people who attended didn't get a good view of what was going on stage, or if they did, parang they were using the social media feed na lang to watch, no? So kung bitin, feeling ko yun na parang okay, we didn't get to see much, so let's do something in do something in Edsa Shrine. Pero I'm just assuming, since actually we're in the process of doing our formal assessment, so I haven't really heard too much on the ground of what happened on Edsa Shrine. But for the most part, it seemed like a really, like when I was seeing the TikToks na may mga tao pa rin doon, it's like, wow, there's something really going on, no?
Yeah. So important as that is, or important as the violent reaction, how do we return the focus to the issue of corruption?
I think that has always been the focus.
Yeah.
Kahit yung mga galit sa Mendiola, yung mga nambato ng pulis, corruption din ang nila. Nagmumula dun sa galit nila, na napabayaan na nga sila ng gobyerno, ninakawan pa sila. So that has always been the focus of the activities. And we should not lose sight of that kasi hindi pa tapos ito eh. Apparently, this is just the tip of the iceberg. From what we heard from the Senate yesterday, ang laki pa pala ng...
This is just Bulacan.
Ay, oo.
Just Bulacan and just flood control.
At ang
diba?
balita
Flood control.
natin, may iba pang whistleblowers na lalabas. So, ano yan? Hindi pwedeng bitawan ng isyong ito. And the people's movement will have to think of ways to sustain interest, to sustain the outrage. Kasi yan ang nagpipilit din dito sa mga opisyal na to finally come out and to do something about corruption.
So what's next? Other mass actions?
Yeah, I think on that point, no, parang hindi naman nawala yung focus sa corruption. And andun pa rin yung galit eh. Hindi naman yan na-disperse sa isang gabi or isang araw nung September 21. I think, baka, Sir Teddy, I don't know if you agree, pero feeling ko kasi, meron pa rin lalabas even if we specifically aren't the ones that organize it. Kasi nga, that feeling is real eh. But I think the challenge, guys, dito sa, mas established groups who organize rallies, what is the next step that we can point to na, okay, we've shown our force, and then what are demands have been made, no? Parang things around transparency, things around open bycam, certain things sa ICI, SALN, exactly. Pero yun, what's the next step? What's the next sort of concrete thing we can call for? And at least ako personally, since medyo elections yung focus ko sa pagtuturo, I'm interested in the idea of really shaping this around political accountability. No? Na, yes, the cases are important. They need to be filed, and parang not a lawyer, but I guess our legal community needs to sort of keep their eye on the ball there. Pero bukod doon, you don't need to wait for guilty beyond reasonable doubt to start saying na, oy, kung sangkot ka dito, we probably shouldn't vote you back in 2028. So I'm interested in seeing if we can translate this this anger and this unity around the issue of corruption into something that is into an electoral force in 2028. Can we name and shame these politicians and with one voice parang turn our backs on them? Kasi in a way, nasimulan yun nung Million Peso March or Million People March na nasipa si Jinggoy at si Enrile noong 2019. Revilla had barely made it in, but he lost 4 million votes. And then in 2025, Revilla got kicked out. Jinggoy made it back in 2022, but came in at 12 versus coming in at second in 2010, the last time he was elected. No? So there is a desire to punish these corrupt officials. We just need to remind people na eto sila, right? Don't forget their names. Don't forget what they did to us. And maybe that's something we can. And during the time of the Million People March, there wasn't a concerted effort to do that, diba? But if we can build something around that, I think that's an additional. It's not the whole thing, but it's a good additional step to take on the back of this.
So there are many other next steps, no? So right now, let's stay on that idea of electoral accountability. Is that something that you share? I mean, is the flood control corruption an election issue?
It should, but it should not be all about the elections.
Okay.
Kasi the worst thing that can happen is what happened in the past. Na may masasampulan dyan, siguro 2-3 senador, congressman, some contractors, some DPWH officials, posibleng makulong. And then yun na yun. And then after a few years, pakakawalan. Tapos tatakbo sa Senado. That's the worst thing that can happen. So, of course, in 2028, dapat markahan na itong mga politikong corrupt, hindi na manalo. But even beyond elections or even prior to elections, paano natin babaguhin yung mga sistemang in place that breeds this kind of corruption, yung systemic and widespread corruption. And that's where the reforms will be important. Yung usapin ng paglabas ng SALN, yung waiver sa mga banks, yung usapin ng budget deliberations, how to make it really more open, transparent, and accountable yung mga naandyan. How do we empower people to have the capacity to actually audit these projects on the ground? Yung anti-dynasty law, yung electoral reform. Dapat mag-channel sa ganung mga more long-term structural reforms. And I think that is the challenge dito sa mga next steps. But basically, for now, the main goal, I think, is to keep up the pressure. Kasi nga...
so, through mass actions?
Through mass actions, that's one. Popular opinion. People are now talking, at least sa network ko, about civil disobedience campaigns. May mga nagsasabi na probably a taxpayer's revolt is appropriate. Kasi pera natin yung ninakaw So, hanggat hindi na nabibigay, na i-ensure natin na yung pera niyan ay mapapangalagaan, magagamit ng tama, huwag tayo magbayad ng buwis. Yan ang mga pinag-uusapan. Ito, mass actions pa rin. Yung mga nasa transport, gusto na nila, ibarikada yung mga, magbarikada na sa mga kalsada. So keeping up the pressure is important. But yun na nga, papunta dun sa mga reforma. At the same time, 2028 is coming up. And I think the challenge also for the anti-corruption groups is to unite and actually support a slate that will embody yung mga panawagan natin. Hindi na hindi na ang choice ng tao, Marcos at Duterte na naman. But the social movement should come up with an alternative for the people. Nasawang-sawa na sa ganitong sistema. And I think that is the challenge for 2028. Pero hindi dyan matatali kasi mahihirapan din yon. I mean, there's also talk of people's initiative.
I wanted that was my question
for these kinds of reforms.
Yes.
Maraming napapag-usapan ngayon on the table. Of course, there is also that idea na baka hindi tumagal si Marcos hanggang 2028. So kung matatanggal si Marcos at hindi naman katanggap-tanggap si Vice President Duterte, anong ipapalit natin in case that Marcos really cannot maintain himself in power in 2028? That's also one thing that these various groups should discuss. What is the alternative to the Marcos and Duterte options?
Okay.
So papasok na dyan yung mga extra
Yeah, two very interesting possibilities, no? Yung tax revolt, tapos itong what happens if Marcos can't hold on, no?
Yeah.
I will, maybe we can discuss that, no, in a bit, but I want to go back to the People's Initiative, no? So sina Shelo Magno and Hyde Mendoza have a very specific, I think, set of 3 proposals for a People's Initiative. What do you think? Would that work? Or of course, we've never had a real People's Initiative, right? It's parang you need what's the minimum? 3% in a congressional district, no? But then 12% total
overall. Yeah, and I think it was parang was it also Manolo Quezon who was writing about parang sayang this is like one of the democratic provisions of the 87 Constitution na for whatever reason it got hijacked by people who wanted to extend themselves in power, and so it got a bad rap. But yeah, I think I can't recall personally of a time that we saw it mobilized not around the constitutional amendment but a set of legislative proposals. So I think it's something that's worth parang I think a lot of I think the September 21 was a game changer in the sense na matagal ng parang common knowledge sa politika na hindi tayo nagne-negative campaign, no? Parang positive parate. But I think given how much anger was expressed in Luneta, in PPM, in all these different venues, maybe we should be rethinking that question. If people are this upset at corruption, then maybe it's parang we can mobilize we can do sort of shame campaigns for officials involved. And baka this opens up again na this thing that we haven't been able to make work before. If sort of both groups sort of give it the blessing na, and I have to study the proposals pa lang. Sure. I haven't been able to sit down yet. But if this is something that both groups give the blessing to na, or all groups give the blessing to na, ito yung follow-up sa Trillion Peso March, I think that's a powerful force to put behind the initiative.
Yeah, my only worry is that it's too policy-oriented.
Yeah.
Baka people might think, what? Hindi nila masyado makuha.
I guess, it's a little parang andito yung
baka nga yung anti-dynasty pa eh.
Maybe.
Yung ganun lang kasimple na sawanan ba kayo sa ganun lang.
Minsan pag naging technical na masyado yung
No.
And then yung People's Initiative, we tried that before dito sa issue ng pork barrel. Kahit pala na Justice Puno. Yung logistical requirements din niya, napakabigat.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time na nakakapagpirma ng substantial dyan, yung pag minomobilize ng mga politiko, yung kanilang mga kapitan, mga mayors.
That's right. Yeah.
What is our machinery that kayang tumapat dyan? Now, unless the church really decides that this will be their major project, yung logistical requirements ang
the other side
and
kasi,
then baka matali tayo dyan, ma-focus tayo sa People's Initiative. What about the other things na low-hanging fruits na kaya mong ilaban through protest and through direct action, baka lahat ng energy natin matali na sa ganitong proseso na napakahirap, napaka-tedious. So I think these are the things that we should really consider. And then there's 2028 in 3 years.
No, on the other hand, naman kasi I'm thinking that's precisely part of the preparation for 2028 and other elections. No? Parang you're building an infrastructure. So yes, you need to be present in every congressional district. You need to get 3% minimum of each congressional district. And if you have an issue that people will gravitate around, baka nga pwede. But again, hindi ko alam, pero parang yun lang. I think people now are asking, like I told you before we started our show, people are interested. What's next? Parang ano sila no? What more can we do? So this could be one. Itong tax revolt, I think you need to prepare the groundwork for that. No? Naalala ko yung nagtawag si Cory Aquino sa Luneta ng civil disobedience campaign. No? Nakakagulat pero we had been prepared no? For that. Hindi siya parang out of the blue, okay, let's boycott all these crony companies. Parang may gano'n na. So medyo yung tao parang okay. No? So but posible nga, maganda nga mangyari kung may ganong klase.
I think it would also depend on what happens next dito sa mga investigations.
Okay.
Because kung lalabas talaga, tulad ng sinasabi nila, na mas marami pang sangkot. Ang balita nga namin, yung mga sangkot sa mga anomalya na yan can already constitute a quorum in the Senate, in the House. Ganong karami. Iniisip ko lang ano ang public reaction dyan. And what kind of actions we can and yun na nga, mga campaigns can we do with that. So may ano yan, may mga bagay pang mangyayari tingin ko that will be factored in.
What do you think will happen to the probes as a result of the September 21 rallies?
What I hope will happen is mas urgent siya, di ba? And you hear the senators. I was watching the Senate more than the House the last couple of days. Pero you hear them invoking na yung mga tao sa Luneta, yung mga tao sa PPM, yung mga tao sa iba't ibang mga parte ng Pilipinas, ito yung panawagan nila, di ba? So, and I think it was that evening na parang may kumalat na information na si Lacson would open up a box of evidence or something. So hopefully that it's of that nature. Pero yung nakakatakot nga, parang after this week or the next couple of weeks, that might start to dissipate din. So again, parang the urgency is on us, di ba, na how do we follow up to it? Na alam pa rin ng mga politiko that our eye is on the ball, that we have that we want to focus. And I also, just on the point of, yung idea na parang may quorum ka na sa lower house for
Or in the Senate.
In the Senate also. I find it interesting na, just on going back to the idea of electoral accountability, but parang na-excite ako if this is an opportunity to recruit new blood to our politics. Diba? If we say na, okay, target natin lahat ng mga district na to, kasi sangkot yung mga representatives nila. And if we can find people, well-meaning people there, who are just as angry as we are and are willing to, at least for the first 3 years of my life, sige, tatapatan ko siya, diba? And then we'll do our best to beat them in the campaign, win, and then we can create fresh faces in our Congress. And even syempre, if they get in, parang candidate recruitment na ever since dito it's just dynasty contract or whatever. What if this is a way for our social movements to identify new faces na in addition to the party-list system, which is how traditionally progressive groups have parang made it into Congress. Parang what if this is another thing we can do? So, but a lot of ideas lang then.
Yeah, actually, John, if you look at it, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
Pero napatanggal na natin ng Senate President. Napatanggal na natin Speaker of the House. That has never happened before. Itong mga cabinet secretaries. Lumabas na yung mga milyong-milyong nasa, hindi na under the table, above the table. And then more senators and congressmen are in danger of, baka hindi na sila makabalik sa susunod na eleksyon. So, And marami pang pwedeng gawin pag ang mamamayan talaga nagkaisa and they are able to mobilize and we see the warm bodies. Many things can happen. And of course,
Sure.
that's the legacy of people power.
Speaking of the quorum, no, let's take a look at the Senate, for instance. So the new majority, there are 15 of them, right? Including the two Villars. Now, if the spotlight turns on Mark Villar, who was for 5 years or so Secretary of Public Works and Highways, will the Villars change their allegiance, shift their allegiance? So that would bring it to 13. So parang just the barest majority. So may mga ganong klaseng calculations din siguro yung iniisip ng mga senators, no? What will happen? I wonder if one of the next steps is meron tayong bantay Senado. Yung parang meron kang grupo talagang physically present, but also, they're monitoring social media. They're telling the senators who we've all seen, are listening to the people. They're looking at all the rallies and so on. Parang binabantayan namin kayo. Is that possible? Ganong klaseng, I don't know if that's been done before. I think there was a transparency and accountability group that monitored the Judicial and Bar Council sessions, yung mga interviews and so on. For a time, I think you had people talagang monitoring them kasi yung mga judges and justices. No? I wonder if would that be a next step? I mean, if you guys call for, we want volunteer lawyers, I think we'll have. I just found out that there are some lawyers volunteering their services to the Independent Commission on Infrastructure, to help with the investigation. Kung magtawag kayo, baka naman may
I think yung Senate is interesting ngayon kasi it's even before the impeachment, sobrang volatile niya. Diba? Like the initial majority that si Senator Escudero assembled, parang you had a 7-person Duterte block, although hindi pala kasi the Villars ended up going with Tito Soto. Pero you had a Duterte block na if they all sort of said na we don't support you anymore, Escudero loses his majority. And then ngayon naman, the Soto 15. In a way, the progressive candidates that we were able to get in, si Kiko, Bam, Risa, they're also a veto player if they act together. Kasi if the three of them suddenly say hindi, then again, Soto loses his majority. No? So I think the specific way to exert that pressure, I think, is very. It needs a lot of nuance and strategy kasi it's hard to tell who can take advantage in that situation. But there's also there's also an opportunity in that our relatively smaller representation in Senate. And sorry to be partisan, no? Parang for Trillion Peso March, naka-white. Pero alam mo naman yung, I do support certain people. That block suddenly has, I think, a lot more influence. And that's a block that is attentive to these social movements. No? Parang you saw na how Senator Kiko and Senator Bam were welcomed during the People Power Monument protest, and then pati si Akbayan was also a big part of our contingent there. So yun, I think the specific way to engage the Senate, I think, is yung ganong bantay Senado. That's maybe one aspect of it. Also coordinating with our allies there to use their, I think, considerably higher proportional to their number, they have, I think, a lot more influence given a certain block. But yeah, it requires a lot of creative thinking that might have been a little temporarily exhausted after pulling off such an amazing feat. Pero we're definitely getting there.
Actually, ang nagbabantay sa Senado ngayon yung Kongreso eh.
Okay.
At yung Kongreso nagbabantay sa Senado. Sila nagbabantayan eh.
Oo.
And sila naglalabasan ng mga sikreto nila. And for me, that's a good thing.
Yes.
And yeah, because of the public pressure. So yeah, by all means, bantay Senado. But we should always not forget yung public pressure talaga. At saka, we have to understand the dynamics also of the Senate. At the end of the day, Malacanang plays a big role in what happens in the Senate and what happens in the House. So let's also not lose sight of the fact that these are administration ruling coalitions in both the House and Congress. And in the past, sumusunod sa kumpas ng Malacanang yan. So it's also interesting, dapat tingnan natin ano ba ang game plan ng Malacanang ngayon.
Kiko, as a political scientist, what do you think of the view of another political scientist? I had Cleaver Geles here the other week, and he said that one of the surprising things with the flood control corruption issue is that in a way, in a major way, Bongbong Marcos was able to reclaim the narrative. No? Parang hindi na siya ganun ka-lame duck. I mean, I know, sabi nga ni Teddy, baka sample lang yung 2 o 3 senador. No? But he has the power, if he wants, to send 2 or 3 senators to jail. So I get that, but at the same time, I also get the sense na he is not that strong. Parang, I sense that vulnerability. Ano tingin mo?
Parang the timeline's interesting nga eh. Kasi nung SONA, di ba, he brought up the issue. And he had to use a very strange threat to the House. No? Na parang, you will abide by the NEP. If not, I will reenact. I'm not afraid to reenact the 2025 budget. It was really problematic. So just the idea of reenacting is one thing. Pero the second is like, supposedly meron kang super majority. Why do you even have to be making these threats out in public, di ba? So I guess in terms of setting the narrative, he put the spotlight on flood control. But I wonder if this is like is he playing with forces that he can't really contain? No? Kasi okay, the spotlight's on flood control, pero yun, lumabas yung PCIJ report na may campaign donor siya na associated din with a contractor, no? So I think yun, maybe he might have tipped the first domino, no? But I don't think he has control of like how the whole thing will fall, no? And yeah, parang medyo natatamaan din siya, di ba?
And I think he would also be reacting to public pressure, no?
I think for Bongbong Marcos, it's a matter of political survival. Kasi kung hindi niya pinwesto yung sarili niya, kung hindi siya pumustura na anti-corruption, etc., sa kanya lahat babalik yun eh. Because he allowed that eh.
Yes.
He allowed those
He signed those laws.
He signed those. At hindi naman siya ignorante katulad ni Bonoan na, ay, di ko alam yan. Impossible. He was governor, he was congressman, he was senator. So he knows the whole thing, the whole system. And he allowed it for 3 years. So sasabog yun. And yun siguro yung isang problema nung hindi niya pinatuloy yung impeachment kay Sara Duterte. Lumakas itong kabila, siya ngayon ang delikado. So he had to find, I don't know if you call it a bogeyman, he had to find, to be able to survive and be relevant. Naghanap siya ng kausa na kapati yung mga alyado niya tatamaan, but again, it's his political survival. Because otherwise, lalabas, kinakandong niya si Martin, kinakandong niya si Saldi, kinakandong niya itong mga senador. And that would have been really disastrous for him. So,
he had no choice.
You got to hand it to them. Either he had no choice, na obliga siya o may political acumen din siya na inunahan na niya lahat. No? But if kaya ba niya yon na palabasin na siya malinis, siya ngayon ang nagkakausa when he was really involved from day one. Yun ang problema, yun ang dilemma tingin ko kaya nga pinag-uusapan na rin, tatagal ba siya until 2028 given his very vulnerable position and these issues that also involve him.
Okay. Last 2 questions. What's next? Where can people volunteer?
We will set things up right away. Pero I think specifically for the Trillion Peso March, I think a lot of people have been reaching out na parang just cold calls on Messenger or whatever na how can we help. I think we're still in the process of really figuring out how we pulled all of that off in 10, 11 days. And I think similar yun sa side ng Luneta. But definitely a very small thing that I can mention is na I work a lot with yung August 21 movement. That's part of my family. They do a regular parang walks. They do a regular yung ROAR, no? So Run On Against Repression siya ngayon. Not dati, but it's become like just a thing that they do regularly. And they were with us during the Trillion Peso March. Then I think some of them might have even joined sa Luneta. And parang they're saying na parang excited sila to do that again, diba? So maybe we can, a small bunch of us can see each other again sa Ayala and have those conversations.
Yeah, we also need more creative forms of protest.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I remember after Nina Aquino was assassinated, there was that Tarlac to Tarmac march. No? Baka ngayon, kailangan balik to Bulacan or something, balik sa Bulacan for people to get, I mean, ito yung mga ghost projects and so on. Kong Teddy, for you, my question is, so you were essentially the one who suggested, let's do a rally on September 21 in a tweet. Do you have another tweet coming up? Do you have a date in mind for another mass action? What's a good time?
Maraming red letter dates eh. But it will really depend also ano mangyayari sa Senado. Minsan yan, biglang pihit yan eh. If you recall yung kay Chavit Singson noon, practically overnight, bumuhos yung tao sa EDSA. So, nasa ganyang tayo, we're in that situation that, sabi nga, a small spark can really light the whole thing up. But I think people should also get organized.
Yeah.
Yung maraming mga estudyante na pumunta sa Luneta, EDSA, there are student organizations that they can join. There are, yung mga communities. It's important to get organized. Eh. Yun yung sinasabi namin palagi na, okay, galit tayo, but importante, mag-organize tayo so that we can be more effective. So that's one. And secondly, to even reach out to more people. Kasi actually, marami pa talagang kailangang makaunawa eh. Ito yung ugat nitong corruption na ito. And to understand it in a more systematic way para mas maging effective din yung ating interventions. So these are the things. Habang pinaghahandaan natin yung next big thing, which I'm not at liberty to say. But may marami nang pinag-uusapan. But definitely, there will be bigger things to come.
Slowly the gears of accountability are moving. It's been good to hear from two of those who helped set them in motion, Teddy Casiño and Kiko Dee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John.
And that's it for us today. The next step for engaged citizens, as always, is to take a more active part in the democratic project. Please download the Rappler Communities app and join the chat room of your choice. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to Rappler Plus. Thank you. This is John Nery. See you in the public square.